Hello there, mates. Today we're diving into the wild world of the Australian Constitution. Now you might be thinking, constitutions, aren't those boring documents filled with legal jargon? And you wouldn't be entirely wrong. But trust me, the Australian Constitution has its own unique brand of fun when it comes to outlining your fundamental rights. We're talking about a document that seems to have been written by a committee torn between genuine concern for its citizens and a desire to keep things as hilariously vague as possible. So, buckle up as we embark on a journey through the rights enshrined in this document, and let's just say, you might want to bring a sense of humor and a healthy dose of skepticism. The right to vote, that cornerstone of any self-respecting democracy. Except in Australia, it's less of a right and more of a civic obligation. You see, our friends down under have this quirky little thing called compulsory voting. That's right. Voting isn't just a right, it's the law. Imagine if your gym membership came with the threat of a fine if you didn't show up. Suddenly, that Zumba class doesn't seem so optional, does it? But hey, at least you can take comfort in knowing that your reluctant vote for the slightly less terrible party is helping to shape the future of Australia. Or at the very least, it's giving those election officials something to count on a Saturday night. Just try not to think about the fact that your right to choose is essentially being exercised for you. It's like your mom picking out your clothes, but instead of a questionable sweater vest, it's the political direction of an entire nation. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite courtroom drama staple, the trial by jury. It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as the American Revolution. But in the land of Oz, this cherished right takes on a slightly more, shall we say, unpredictable flavor. You see, the Australian Constitution guarantees the right to trial by jury for indictable offences. Sounds promising, right? Well, hold your kangaroo burgers, because it's not always the legal thriller you might expect. Forget the high-powered lawyers and dramatic courtroom showdowns you've come to expect from Law and Order. In reality, it's more like trying to explain quantum physics to a flock of confused pigeons. And don't even get me started on the jury selection process. It's like a cross between a lucky dip and a hostage situation. Next up, we have the implied freedom of political communication. Now, you might be thinking, implied? Shouldn't freedom of speech, especially about politics, be a given? And you'd be right, you beautiful, common-sense wielding individual. It's a bit like writing into law the right to breathe. Sure, it's important, but did it really need to be spelled out? Freedom of religion, that sacred cow of human rights. Except in Australia, it's more like a sacred koala. Adorable, cuddly, and with a tendency to throw things at you when it's feeling threatened. You see, the Australian Constitution offers some protection for freedom of religion. And by some, we mean limited and conditional. It's like being offered a slice of cake, but only being allowed to eat it with a spoon, and while standing on one leg. Sure, you're technically getting cake, but it's not exactly the satisfying experience you were hoping for. This limited protection means that while you're generally free to worship whichever deity or deities you please, the government reserves the right to step in if they feel like your beliefs are a bit too out there. So, if you're thinking of starting a new religion based on the worship of Vegemite or the healing power of didgeridoo music, you might want to run it by the authorities first. And last but not least, we come to the right to be paid a fair price for property reclaimed by the government. Now this one is a real humdinger. It's like finding a unicorn riding a kangaroo while balancing a cup of tea on its head. Technically possible, but you're probably not going to see it in your lifetime. The idea is that if the government decides they need your land for some reason, they can't just roll in and take it without offering you a fair price. Well, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of the Australian Constitution's greatest hits when it comes to rights. It's a document that's both endearingly quirky and slightly alarming in its vagueness. It's almost as if the Founding Fathers were playing a game of constitutional Mad Libs, throwing in random rights and freedoms with reckless abandon. So, the next time you're feeling grateful for your own country's Bill of Rights, spare a thought for those Aussies who are navigating the legal labyrinth with a smile and a healthy dose of "she'll be right, mate." As for what rights truly matter, well, That's up to you to decide.